Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. That's not just any song. That was the mystical Shobijin calling out to their deity, the divine, the benevolent, the brave, Mothra. Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're looking for some kaiju mania, you've come to the right place. In today's video, the king of the monsters will have to take a step back, because the queen of the monsters is here to claim the throne. The magnificent moth kaiju, Mothra, emerged from her silken cocoon for the first time in 1961 and left quite an impression on kaiju aficionados. Just like her never-ending life cycle, what began was a series of appearances, solo films, comics, anime and books, weaving an extensive franchise for this moth goddess. Mothra's several big-screen reappearances were not just to fight Gojira, but also to aid the king on several occasions. Truth be told, every time Mothra sacrificed herself for the greater good, she left us teary-eyed. Her most recent sacrificial gesture was refusing to bend to Ghidorah's will in King of the Monsters, and getting incinerated in the process, but marvelously supercharging Godzilla with her life essence. In this video, we'll take you through Mothra's entire journey since she hatched from the Toho Studios in 1961. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Mothra, 1961. Did you know that Mothra's first appearance wasn't in a movie, but in a serialized novel named The Luminous Fairies and Mothra? Conceptualized by Toho, the story was first printed in a magazine before it was adapted into the 1961 movie Mothra, which reunited the Godzilla team of director Ishiro Honda, special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya, and producer Tomoyuki Tanaka. The titular kaiju was explained to be the guardian goddess of Infant Island in the South Pacific Ocean, worshipped by the natives and cocooned to transform into her majestic imago form. Mothra produced eggs asexually, and following her death was reborn from the egg. To add to Mothra's supernatural element, the guardian kaiju was accompanied by twin fairies called the Shobijin, who could summon her with a unique song, and also communicate with humans on behalf of her. Fun fact, Japanese twin singers called the Peanuts were cast in the role of the Shobijin for their distinctive voice. Mothra and Shobijin's special camaraderie became a tradition that's been followed through all Mothra and Godzilla movies. In the 1961 film, when an expedition to Infant Island led to the discovery of the tiny fairies, the film's antagonist Clark Nelson captured the Shobijin and brought them to Tokyo to profit from their performances. Meanwhile, the natives of Infant Island sang to Mothra's egg inside a shrine, making her hatch in larva form. Attracted by the songs of the Shobijin, Mothra swam her way to Tokyo and cocooned in the destroyed Tokyo Tower. When attacked by the military's atomic heat ray guns, Mothra emerged out of her cocoon as the fully transformed Mothra kaiju with pretty impressive stats. 80 meters in length, with a wingspan of 250 meters, Mothra weighed a whopping 20,000 metric tons. After destroying all of Tokyo, Mothra managed to save the Shobijin at an airport runway and flew back to Infant Island with them. Mothra vs. Godzilla, 1964. So, this was the first generation Mothra, who returned 3 years later in 1964's Mothra vs. Godzilla, when her egg floated on the ocean waters all the way from Infant Island to Japan, following a typhoon. A greedy businessman, Kumayama, planned to display the egg as his upcoming amusement park's main attraction. When the Shobijin arrived in Japan to convince Kumayama to release Mothra's egg because otherwise the larva would cause a trail of destruction when hatched, their request was rejected. Soon enough, Godzilla sensed the presence of Mothra's incubated egg on mainland Japan and began approaching its target. A weak and frail Mothra, who was at the end of her life cycle on Infant Island, flew to Japan just in time to thwart Godzilla's attack. While she clawed at Godzilla and sprayed him with a poisonous powder, Mothra was charred by Godzilla's atomic blasts and breathed her last with her rescued egg under her wings. The Shobijin and the Infant Islanders sang the prayer song to make the egg hatch, and out came not one but two Mothra larvae, who proceeded to seek revenge on their mother's killer. On Iwa Island, they trapped Godzilla in silken cocoons, forcing him to tumble into the ocean, thus emerging victorious against the nuclear powerhouse. The larvae then returned to Infant Island with the Shobijin. Some may refer to the film as Godzilla vs. the Thing, as that's the title the film was given for its US release, keeping Mothra a surprise for the audience. Owing to Mothra's gigantic wings, she generated hurricane winds, which knocked down buildings and even Godzilla. Her stream of silk was powerful enough to stop helicopter propellers and even restrain the King of Monsters. Mothra was strong enough to be able to drag Godzilla by the tail and also possessed an unusual ability. She could release a toxic yellow powder from her wings, which disoriented Godzilla, though it appeared to affect her ability to fly. In her larval stage, just by her sheer length of 180 meters and brute strength, Mothra was able to plow through huge concrete structures and proved immune to conventional weaponry. Mothra also appeared unbothered by fire when she swam through the burning waters set ablaze by the JSDF. Mothra was initially planned to have the ability to shoot a fire beam from her mouth, which is also displayed in one of the posters of the 1961 movie, but this fiery feature never made it to the big screen. The Shobijin also believed Mothra to be immortal, in the sense that a new incarnation of the kaiju would take over after the previous one perished, emerging from the asexually laid eggs. Other media. An alternate origin story for Mothra, as mentioned in Takamasa Ueda's novelization for Mothra vs. Godzilla, published by Kodansha in 1984, suggested that Mothra was a species of Japanese silk moth, which evolved into a kaiju on Infant Island because of Earth's unnatural weather patterns. The novel also proposed that the presence of a nuclear power plant on Iwa Island had the potential to contaminate other islands of the Japanese archipelago, one of them being Mothra's territory, Infant Island. In 1964, Mothra also made an appearance in the manga adaptation of the film, created by comics artist Fumio Hisamatsu for a children's magazine. Again, props of Mothra's larval and imago forms were visible in the 1961 comedy movie Cheers, Mr. Awamori, as portions of the film were shot inside the Toho studios. Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, 1964. Mothra's twin offspring, who launched their offensive silk attacks at Godzilla and pushed him into the ocean in the 1964 film, are the second-generation Mothra. The same year, Toho released Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. Sometime before the events of this movie, one of the two Mothras died on Infant Island, making her twin sister take up the mantle of the island's guardian monster. When the space monster King Ghidorah landed on Earth on a destructive spree, the Japanese government reached out to the Shobijin and sought out Mothra's help, who was still in her larval form. The twin fairies proposed that while Mothra alone would be overpowered by the alien kaiju, she needed to team up with Godzilla and Rodan, who were engaged in a clash at Mount Fuji. Mothra interrupted the warring kaiju by firing streams of silk, and given her benevolent nature, proceeded to convince the two to save humanity, but failed. Mothra decided to go into battle against King Ghidorah alone, but was soon hindered by his powerful gravity beams. King Ghidorah's ruthless attacks on Mothra infuriated Godzilla and Rodan, and finally convinced them to join forces with the Moth kaiju, and together put an end to the alien monster. Perched on Rodan's back, Mothra shrouded Ghidorah's three heads in silk while Godzilla grabbed him by the tail and threw him down a cliff. As Ghidorah fled to space, it was mission accomplished for Mothra, who returned to Infant Island. Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, 1966. Mothra made an appearance again in 1966's Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, and by then she'd grown into her majestic imago form. A group of terrorists called the Red Bamboo landed upon Infant Island and captured the majority of the islanders, holding them hostage at the nearby Lecce Island. Mothra remained asleep during the abduction, prompting the Shobijin and the natives who survived the abduction to carry out the ceremony to awaken Mothra with their constant prayers. When Mothra awoke and flew into Lecce Island with the Shobijin on her back, she found out that Godzilla was engaged in a battle against a crustacean kaiju, Ebirah, which guarded the waters around the island. The infant islanders quickly converged inside a giant net so that Mothra could carry them away. Having defeated Ebirah by now, Godzilla attempted to attack Mothra. Meanwhile, Lecce Island was about to explode as the Red Bamboo had rigged it with nuclear bombs. With no time to waste, Mothra simply knocked off Godzilla with her wings so that she could fly away with the innocent islanders. Godzilla too jumped into the water just in time as the island exploded behind him. The second-generation Mothra managed to injure Godzilla in both her forms. As a larva, she bit down on him with her mandibles, while in her imago state, she was able to make Godzilla topple over with her powerful wings. In her larval form, Mothra reached 40 meters in length, while in her imago form, she measured 65 meters. This Mothra also displayed great intelligence, first in transforming Godzilla from a destructive force into the protector of humanity, and then by avoiding a conflict with him on Lecce Island in the next film, in the interest of time. Mothra's stream of silk was powerful enough to break up Rodan and Godzilla's fight and also restrain Ghidorah's heads. However, her colossal larval form, weighing as much as the weight of 2,500 elephants, proved to be a disadvantage, restricting her mobility and easily getting blasted away by Ghidorah. Destroy All Monsters, 1968. In 1968's Destroy All Monsters, Mothra was among those Earth monsters which were living on the human-monitored region Monsterland, an island in the Ogasawara chain. Categorized as the third-generation Mothra, this moth kaiju hadn't been linked to any past Mothra films or the Shobijin, and only appeared in her larval form in the movie, measuring 40 meters in length and resembling the second-generation Mothra's larval stage. Mothra who hung out in the vicinity of the Gorosaurus in Monsterland, only partook in causing destruction when under the control of the alien Kilax and assisting the other Earth monsters in battling Ghidorah. When the Kilax released a cloud of intoxicating substance on Monsterland, all creatures on the island were knocked out, only to be revived later as pawns of the alien invaders. The Kilax began mind-controlling the kaiju, Mothra among them, whose first mission was to terrorize Beijing. Later, she resurfaced in Tokyo to join her fellow monsters Godzilla, Rodan, and Manda in reducing the city to rubble. Weighing 10,000 metric tons, Mothra destroyed a train in Beijing and smashed through a subway station in Tokyo with her brute strength. Once the kaiju were freed of their mind control, the Kilax unleashed their ultimate weapon, King Ghidorah, prompting Mothra to fight alongside Godzilla, Rodan, Anguirus, Kumonga, and the Gorosaurus to defeat the space monster. When the other monsters brought King Ghidorah down, the finishing touches were delivered by Mothra, who covered the defeated monster's body in silk along with Kumonga's webbing. Mothra, along with the other monsters, then returned to live peacefully on Monsterland. Godzilla vs. Mothra, 1992. Mothra returned to the big screen several years later in 1992's Godzilla vs. Mothra, and during the hiatus, she featured in stock footage appearances in 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan and 1984's Bye Bye Jupiter. Godzilla vs. Mothra was initially conceptualized as a standalone Mothra film, pitting her against a monster named Bagan, but the box office failure of 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante concerned the folks at Toho about Mothra alone not being able to propel the movie to success. Toho then planned to include Mothra in a Godzilla vs. Gigamoth movie, with the latter monster being an evil twin of the Mothra larva. It was finally changed to Godzilla vs. Mothra, in which the Divine Protector got a brand new origin story. Over 12,000 years ago, Mothra was the guardian of an ancient universe, inhabited by an advanced civilization, and they constructed a device to regulate Earth's weather. The planet felt threatened and created the malevolent moth kaiju Batra, kinda like Mothra's dark counterpart, as a fierce, vengeful protector of Earth. When this Black Mothra was done destroying the device, he attempted to destroy the civilization, drawing Mothra's attention, who intervened. After an extensive fight, Mothra managed to seal off Batra in the North Sea, but in the battle that ensued, the entire civilization was destroyed. Mothra then relocated to the infant island with the last remaining members of the civilization, two little fairies, who were called the Cosmos instead of their past title, the Shobijin. In 1993, an expedition team landed up on Infant Island where they witnessed the Cosmos alongside an egg of Mothra. When the egg was being transported to Japan, the barge was attacked by Godzilla, prompting a larval Mothra to hatch and battle Godzilla. A reawakened Batra also emerged, knocking Mothra to the side and engaging Godzilla in battle. When Batra and Godzilla fell through a volcanic fissure, Mothra returned to the infant island only to find that the Cosmos had been abducted by one of the explorers and taken to mainland Japan. Following a rampaging spree, Mothra reunited with the Cosmos in the city, but was forced to cocoon when attacked by the JSDF. Later, both Godzilla and Batra reappeared to engage in a three-way battle with Mothra, but this benevolent protector managed to convince Batra to team up with her and take Godzilla for a literal ride. Mothra and Batra flew out into the ocean carrying Godzilla, but the King of Monsters chomped on Batra's throat, making it impossible for Mothra to carry the weight of both kaiju, forcing her to drop them into the ocean. Placing a sacred seal over where Batra drowned, Mothra flew into space to carry out the mission that was on Batra's to-do list, to stop a meteor from crashing into Earth in 1999. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, 1994. Continuing Mothra's story from the previous film, 1994's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla showed that Mothra's journey through space in order to intercept the Earthbound meteor had made her aware of another threat. An alien doppelganger of Godzilla, Space Godzilla, was on its way to destroy its counterpart on Earth and take over the planet. An alarmed Mothra generated numerous tiny fairy Mothras, one of which made it to Earth and met the psychic Miki Saigusa, who was able to communicate with Godzilla. The fairy Mothra revealed itself to Miki in the form of the Cosmos, who warned her about the impending alien monster. The Cosmos reminded Miki to keep Godzilla safe because if Space Godzilla defeated the King of Monsters, then Earth would be defenseless and vulnerable to attacks. Following up on Fairy Mothra's grave warning, Miki ensured that Godzilla was there to protect Earth from the alien kaiju. After Space Godzilla was blasted away, the Cosmos reappeared to thank Miki for saving the planet. Meanwhile, the scientists proposed that Mothra might have inadvertently created the Space Godzilla when she carried some of Godzilla's flesh on her wings into outer space, following her battle with Godzilla in the last movie. Godzilla's cells then entered a black hole and exited through a white hole, getting exposed to the energy of supernovas and merging with crystalline organisms in between, thus giving rise to the Space Godzilla. Another theory suggested that Biollante might have carried Godzilla's cells into space in 1990. In her larval form, The colossal 120-meter-long Mothra could cause Godzilla pain by biting him with her mandibles. Once, she chomped down on his chest and then on his tail. The stream of silk released by Mothra also seemed to sizzle Godzilla's skin, producing smoke on contact. This incarnation of Mothra, when in her metamorphosed imago form, had a wingspan of 175 meters and reached 65 meters in length. She could shoot 2 simultaneous streams of ultrasonic beam from her antennae, produced by sacs in her forehead, which were capable of knocking down and stunning Godzilla. In her imago form, Mothra could release strings of electricity from her wings, which however had little effect on Godzilla. Like the first-generation Mothra, this version of the kaiju too could release a substance from her wings, a shower of shiny scales. When released on targets, it took the form of a mirrored confinement, reflecting the opponent's attacks back on them, such as when Godzilla's atomic attacks reflected back on him. Mothra tactfully used this ability in sync with Batra's prism beams, bouncing it off the scale walls and hitting Godzilla multiple times with it. Other media. Given the popularity of Mothra in 1993, 2 manga adaptations of Godzilla vs. Mothra were released separately by 2 Japanese publications, retaining the theme of the 3-way battle between Mothra, Godzilla, and Batra. In the version published by Kodansha, Godzilla killed Batra with a punch that burst through his head. In the version published by Shogakukan, several characters important to the plot, like Miki Segusa, were omitted. In this version, Batra could release powerful energy spheres from its horns, and also got an additional battle with Godzilla. During this face-off, Mothra shielded Batra from Godzilla's atomic blast, and that's how the 2 Moth Kaiju became friends. A thunder control system from 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante was also used against the larval Mothra in this manga. Next up, we have Godziland, which refers to a series of children's educational shows based on Toho's kaiju franchise. Its first season, Adventure Godziland, was created ahead of Godzilla vs. Mothra's release for the film's promotion. Comprising 15-minute episodes, the show was aired from October 1992 till sometime around the film's release in December on TV Tokyo. Adventure Godziland featured trivia about the upcoming movie, musical numbers, and also the actresses who played the cosmos in the film. Godziland featured both live-action and chibi-style animation. Adventure Godziland got a second season in 1993 for the promotions of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. This was followed by Get Going Godziland, which released between 1994 and 96. The series featured cute animated versions of Godzilla and his kaiju friends living on the island Godziland. Mothra was the only adult in the show, who had 2 larval offspring and acts as the maternal figure to the other young kaiju. Get Going Godziland aimed at teaching the hiragana alphabet to kids, and also mathematical calculations. Rebirth of Mothra Trilogy, Rebirth of Mothra, 1996. The Mothra franchise was revamped with the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, with the first film releasing in 1996. It was the final kaiju film made under the supervision of Toho producer Tomoyuki Tanaka, who died a few months ahead of the film's release. In the 1996 film, an aging Mothra paved the way for her offspring to take on the title of the Guardian Kaiju. In that film, Mothra was the only remaining member of an ancient species of Moth Kaiju who protected Earth during ancient times. She'd been living with Fairy Mothra and the Elias, aka the Shobijin, on Infant Island for centuries. Now, at the end of her life cycle, Mothra released colorful energy spores from her body, which then combined into an egg so that her offspring could carry on her legacy. The Elias, Mothra's fairy priestesses, also got a new twist in this trilogy. They had a third evil sister. In the first Rebirth of Mothra film, the space monster Desghidorah was released from its stony confinement by the evil sister and attempted to drain out energy from Earth's surface while also attacking humanity. The Elias, who had sealed off the extraterrestrial monster 65 million years ago, summoned the weakened Mothra to fight this invincible kaiju. When Mothra arrived, she was almost immediately one-upped by Desghidorah. Meanwhile, the Mothra egg hatched into a larval Mothra, who joined the fight, but despite their combined efforts, both the parent Mothra and the larval Mothra were defeated and tortured. The parent Mothra combined her remaining strength to fly her offspring away from Desghidorah, but on the way, succumbed and drowned in the ocean. Grieved and angered by its mother's death, the larva swiftly cocooned itself around a 10,000-year-old Yomonsugi tree on Yakushima Island. When the cocoon broke, a flutter of butterflies emerged and integrated into a fully metamorphosed Mothra Leo, who was empowered by the prayer of the Elias and strengthened by the energy of the ancient tree. Equipped with a gamut of impressive powers, Mothra Leo avenged his mother's death by shrouding Desghidorah in his powerful energy beams and locking him away with the ancient seal. This Mothra, just like her previous incarnation, could shoot explosive energy streams called the beam pulsar from its twin antennae, shower scales that created a pressure field and released lightning from her wings. Most impressive of her powers was the Flash Dash, with which she dashed at a speed of Mach 80 for just a few seconds at Desghidorah. Mothra also emitted a high-voltage current from her claws, with which she caused explosions while clawing at the space monster. Mothra was also able to launch a pair of silver whips from her antennae, which she used to knock off things. This incarnation of Mothra was sometimes confused with the 1992 version because of their similarity in appearance and powers. However, the aging Mothra from 1996 was significantly smaller than its previous version, with a length of just 25 meters and a wingspan of 50 meters. Mothra Leo possessed way more abilities than his mother, which enabled him to overpower Ghidorah in his imago form. In his larval form, Mothra Leo could shoot XL strings, which had an electrifying aftershock, fire energy blasts from his chest, and camouflage with his surroundings. In his imago state, he could perform a faster version of the flash dash like his mom and release a trio of laser beams from the gems on his forehead. Mothra Leo got creative with his electrical powers, raining down electrical charges on Ghidorah in the form of spheres and columns. With his replenishing pulsophonic shower, Mothra Leo dramatically enhanced the flora and fauna of the Hokkaido rainforest on his way back to the infant island. Rebirth of Mothra 2, 1997. In the second film of the trilogy, 1997's Rebirth of Mothra 2, Mothra Leo underwent quite a number of power-packed transformations. When the demonic sea monster Dagara, created by the ancient Nilai Kanai civilization, infested the oceans with poisonous mutated starfish called the Barum, Mothra Leo was summoned by the Elias. In the battle that ensued, Leo was dragged deep into the water by Dagara, but the statues of the Nilai Kanai pyramid transferred unusual powers to Leo, enabling him to blast off Dagara and return to the surface. However, Dagara soon returned to launch another assault at Leo, and this time with 2 new shoulder cannons. Meanwhile, it was revealed that the people of the civilization created their greatest treasure in the form of a warm, fuzzy creature named Gogo, which had survived till the present times. Gogo transferred its life essence to Leo, transforming him into the Rainbow Mothra. Outmatched by Leo's new form, Dagara retreated underwater only to be followed by Leo in his Aqua Mothra form. Leo's aquatic form split into smaller butterflies, entered Dagara's body and ravaged it from the inside. Reforming into his full form, Mothra Leo dragged Dagara's body out of the water and dropped it on the pyramid, causing a major explosion and finishing off the monster. In addition to the triple laser beams fired from his forehead and shooting energy bolts, the Rainbow Mothra launched the Aurora Power Attack, which was a concentrated blast of multicolored energy that knocked off Dagara. He could also generate an energy field around him, which was powerful enough to deflect Dagara's Irabushin beam. In his rainbow form, Mothra Leo reached a flight speed of Mach 15.5, while the Aqua Mothra could swim at a speed of 200 knots. In his Aqua form, Mothra Leo could shoot out X-shaped and V-shaped energy blasts, powerful enough to make Dagara writhe in pain. The Aqua Mothra generated a tractor beam, powerful enough to lift up a 17,700 metric tons worth of kaiju from the sea. Rebirth of Mothra 3, 1998. Mothra Leo continued his transformation spree in the third film of the trilogy, 1998's Rebirth of Mothra 3. A year after the events of the previous film, Rainbow Mothra was summoned by the Elias again to fight King Ghidorah. The 3-headed dragon kaiju invaded Earth 130 million years ago and had returned to prey on kids. Rainbow Mothra intervened in King Ghidorah's plans, but was quickly beaten by the indestructible monster's gravity beams. Meanwhile, Rainbow Mothra's attacks had no effect on King Ghidorah, who had an invisible barrier around him. Mothra realized that the only way to beat this 3-headed kaiju was to go back in time and finish it off when it attacked Earth for the first time. Transforming into the light-speed Mothra, he tracked down Ghidorah in the Cretaceous era and sliced its tail off, causing the present-day Ghidorah great pain. Even in the past, Ghidorah proved to be a formidable opponent, weakening down Mothra Leo with his fireballs and almost killing him. When Mothra managed to drag Ghidorah to the tip of Mount Fuji, the villainous kaiju disappeared from present-day Earth. As the fallen Mothra remained shrouded in a cocoon, another Ghidorah, regrown from the severed tail, landed on Earth in a meteor. The cocoon hatched to release another transformed Mothra, Armor Mothra, who was immune to Ghidorah's gravity beams. Armor Mothra chopped off one of Ghidorah's wings and flew through the monster, making him crystallize and then disintegrate. Mothra then shed his armor to become Eternal Mothra, who revived one of his fallen priestesses and flew back to his home island. Just like its 1964 predecessor, the Rainbow Mothra in this film could release a paralyzing powder from his wings, which incapacitated King Ghidorah. In addition to that, the Rainbow Mothra retained its traditional powers of firing laser beams and shooting energy bolts. As name suggests, the Lightspeed Mothra could travel at the speed of light and also through time. The Armor Mothra was an invincible version, which could shrug off the same gravity beams that destroyed his rainbow form earlier. In his armored state, Mothra's wings were sharp enough to slice off Ghidorah's wing. Armor Mothra's most notable power was his ability to energize himself and pass through Ghidorah's body, making it crumble. Armor Mothra's laser beams were also powerful enough to cut through Ghidorah's invisible barrier. Mothra Leo's last form in the trilogy, Eternal Mothra, was shown to be capable of restoring life to one of his fairies. Weighing a maximum of 5,900 metric tons and a minimum of 3,500 metric tons between its several forms, Mothra Leo is the lightest incarnation of the kaiju to date. Mothra Leo's roar is also much deeper, masculine sounding than any other Mothra incarnation. Interestingly, Armor Mothra was assigned a mechanical roar that sounds like a drill. Other media. Mothra Leo also featured in the TV show Godzilla Island, which aired between 1997 and 1998, clocking 256 3-minute episodes and 2 seasons. The basic premise of the show was in the year 2097, all of Earth's monsters were coexisting on Godzilla Island, monitored by the G-Guard, when their peaceful lives were stirred up by the arrival of alien invaders. In the series, Mothra Leo was called Little Mothra in his larval form and New Mothra in his imago form. In Godzilla Island, Little Mothra was living alongside the aged parent kaiju, Mother Mothra, when Hedorah crash-landed on a meteor. Mother Mothra, weakened from her old age, attempted to fight the smog monster but was easily overpowered. Little Mothra witnessed his mother fall into a volcano while carrying Hedorah to it, who somehow survived and attacked Little Mothra's cocoon. Godzilla thwarted Hedorah's attempts and gave Little Mothra enough time to metamorphose into the new Mothra, and together they defended the island. Mothra Leo also protected his younger sister Baby Mothra from aggressive kaiju such as Batra. The 1996 picture book Godzilla Saves America, A Monster Showdown in 3D, explored Mothra and Godzilla's camaraderie. Controlled by aliens, King Ghidorah landed on Earth and zeroed in on France as its first target of destruction, before moving on to the rest of the world, when Japan's UN ambassador stressed on the importance of summoning Godzilla, as he'd defeated the alien dragon in the past. The same thought crossed Mothra's mind, who was prompted to awaken Godzilla from the depths of the Pacific Ocean. With the military making way for Godzilla, the King of Monsters trailed Mothra through the United States, briefly clashing with Rodan at Mount Rushmore, before the final showdown with King Ghidorah in New York City. When Godzilla was being strangled by King Ghidorah, Mothra distracted the space monster with the ultrasonic beams from her antennae. With a swish of Godzilla's tail and the force of Mothra's hurricane-like wind force, a skyscraper was brought down on King Ghidorah, who then escaped into space. Having fulfilled their shared goal of protecting the planet, Mothra and Godzilla returned to their homes. A 1997 young adult novel titled Godzilla 2000 followed a similar story, with the events taking place in the United States between 1998 and 2000. It was the second entry in Mark Cerasini's series of Godzilla novels, whose basic premise followed the traditional story of Earth being ravaged by monsters set loose when Godzilla arrived to save the day. In this novel, a bunch of kaiju were unleashed from a cloud of asteroids when Mothra appeared in a protagonist's dream to communicate that she and her friend Godzilla were going to try and defend the planet, and that they were not the enemies. In sync with the story's title, the final showdown between King Ghidorah and Godzilla took place on the first day of the millennium. Mothra guided Godzilla to Manhattan, and owing to her previously communicated message, the G-Force abstained from attacking Godzilla. As Godzilla defeated Ghidorah, Mothra stood by her friend's side, observing the battle, till Godzilla returned to the Hudson River. Mothra came back in Mark Cerasini's next book, 1998's Godzilla at World's End, when crystalline beings awoke on Earth after millions of years and identified the humans as a plague. That year, Mothra featured in another kaiju book, Godzilla vs. the Space Monster, in which King Ghidorah angered Godzilla by attacking his friends, Mothra, among them on Monster Island. In this book, a 12-year-old boy from Indiana held the key to defeating Ghidorah. Mothra appeared in another picture book for children, 1996's Godzilla on Monster Island, in which a bunch of kaiju living on Monster Island had several adventures surrounding a mysterious egg which appeared on the island's shores following a tropical storm. When Varan and Anguirus drew Godzilla's attention to the egg, he became fiercely protective about it, defending it from monsters such as Kamacuras, Kumonga, and Gigan. When scientists sent a Mechagodzilla to retrieve the egg, Godzilla beat it to a pulp and sent it back to base. Soon enough, the cocoon hatched and the majestic Mothra unfurled her wings. Mothra's presence lit up the island. As the book described, the monsters have never seen anything so beautiful. Mothra gazes down at Godzilla and smiles. A light mist of golden snow begins to fall from her wings. It rains down onto the monsters, filling them with happiness and wonder. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, 2001. The first Millennium incarnation of Mothra popped up in 2001's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. In this movie, Mothra was one of the ancient guardians of the world, the god of the sea, who was put to rest by the noble warriors of Japan thousands of years ago, sealing her off in a shrine under Lake Ikeda. The warriors then prayed to her soul so that one day she may return to protect the earth again. In 2002, a group of teenagers attempting to drown a dog in Lake Ikeda disturbed Mothra's shrine, awakening the guardian kaiju. While she saved the poor animal, she encased the teenagers in a silken cocoon, which floated on the lake. P.S. Godzilla was a supernatural monster and the antagonist in this movie. So, when he emerged to lay waste to Japan, Prophet Hirotoshi Isayama prayed to the ancient guardian monsters Baragon, Mothra, and Ghidorah to handle the Godzilla menace. He transferred the souls of Japan's honorable dead to Mothra, who hatched from her cocoon in her imago form and flew to Yokohama to face the king of monsters, who had already defeated the guardian kaiju Baragon. Mothra attacked Godzilla by shooting stingers and clawing at him, and also managed to dodge his atomic blasts, which however destroyed the Yokohama landmark tower. Mothra also shielded Ghidorah by deflecting Godzilla's atomic blasts, which sent her flying onto a rail track. When Mothra attempted to launch a surprise attack at Godzilla, he turned his head just in time and incinerated the moth kaiju with his atomic breath. Mothra's sacrifice was not in vain, as her life essence floated into Ghidorah, transforming him into the 1,000-year-old dragon, King Ghidorah. In the end, the combined spirit of the three guardian monsters dragged Godzilla down to the bottom of the ocean. This incarnation of Mothra possessed the unique ability to fire a stream of poisonous stingers from her abdomen, which were potent enough to cause Godzilla to tumble over. Mothra had an advantage over Godzilla with her power of flight, dodging his attacks and sneaking up on him, which she utilized to avoid his atomic blasts. Interestingly, while she revived Ghidorah by transferring her life essence in this movie, she did the same for Godzilla in Monsterverse, but more on that later. Godzilla Tokyo SOS, 2003. The following year, in 2002's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, Mothra was briefly mentioned as a monster who attacked Japan in 1961 and shown through stock footage. In this film, the Japanese government built a biorobot named Kiryu, aka the titular Mechagodzilla, from the bones of the 1954 Godzilla that was killed by the oxygen destroyer. In 2003's Tokyo SOS, Toho decided to bring back Mothra owing to the kaiju's massive fan following. For Tokyo SOS, she was created as an homage to the first-generation Mothra, who was killed by Godzilla and avenged by her twin larva offspring in the 1964 movie Mothra vs. Godzilla. Established as a descendant of the original Mothra in the film, this benevolent moth kaiju peacefully coexisted with humanity and made the journey from Infant Island to Tokyo with her shobijin to convey a message. Mothra, who was concerned with protecting nature's balance, reprimanded the JSDF for digging out the original Godzilla's bones, explaining it to be an unnatural act. She demanded that Godzilla's remains be returned to the ocean, otherwise she'd be forced to declare war on humanity. The shobijin also conveyed that Mothra promised to battle Godzilla if her demands were met with. Though that didn't happen, the aging Mothra returned to fight Godzilla in Tokyo anyway, and was outmatched in size and power by the 55 meters tall and 65 meters in length kaiju. Kiryu was deployed into the battle to aid the weakened moth kaiju, but it too was one-upped by the king of monsters. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Mothra's egg hatched into twin offspring, just like in the 1964 movie, who arrived in Tokyo to aid their mother, who was injured and couldn't fly anymore. In a heartbreaking scene, Mothra sacrificed herself to protect her offspring from Godzilla's atomic blast, going up in flames. When Kiryu drilled through Godzilla's chest, the larval twins trapped their mother's killer in a silken cocoon. Kiryu disposed of the cocoon into the ocean, sinking into the Japan Trench with him. With Kiryu drowning in the ocean, the original Godzilla's bones were returned to where they belonged, and nature's balance was restored, just like Mothra wanted. Similar to her 1964 predecessor, this Mothra too could release a shower of yellow particles, which incapacitated Godzilla, causing his atomic breath to go off in his face. Mothra used this power as her last resort, as she appeared to lose her ability to remain airborne after that. A larval Mothra biting on Godzilla's tail was reminiscent of a similar scene, and a nod to the 1964 movie. However, being much smaller in size than Godzilla, this Mothra got injured by his atomic breath and got a leg bitten off easily, before finally succumbing to the King of Monsters' attacks. Godzilla Final Wars, 2004. 2004's Godzilla Final Wars portrayed Mothra as an ancient defender of Earth who defeated the alien cyborg Gigan thousands of years ago and mummified him somewhere off the coast of Hokkaido. In the year 20XX, the Earth Defense Force chanced upon the buried Gigan and recovered it to study the creature. This alarmed Mothra, who then made the journey from Infant Island to Hokkaido with a shobijin to warn the EDF about the impending resurrection of Gigan. Just as the monster awoke, the evil alien race of Exilians took control of Gigan and other Earth monsters, setting them loose in cities across the globe. Gigan reappeared in a modified avatar with chainsaws instead of scythes for arms and a neck brace, ready to finish off its ancient enemy once and for all. While Mothra clashed with Gigan, Godzilla busied himself battling the most formidable of the Exilians' weapons, Monster X. Clashing at the Tokyo Tower, Mothra and Gigan resumed their old war. While Mothra's hurricane winds forced Gigan to slide back, Gigan managed to impale Mothra with its spiked tail. In this film, Mothra had an impressive wingspan of 216 meters. Gigan chopped off a portion of Mothra's wing, causing her to crash back at the dilapidated remains of Tokyo. Mothra recovered and proceeded to save Godzilla from the tag-team attacks of Gigan and Monster X. While she managed to dodge Gigan's razor discs in typical Matrix style, Mothra was tragically incinerated by Gigan's fiery blasts. And just when Gigan thought he'd won, one of its own razor discs boomeranged back and beheaded the monster. In an epic move, the burning Mothra then crashed into the headless Gigan, causing an explosion that destroyed the cyborg kaiju and seemingly killed Mothra as well. However, the end credit scene of Godzilla Final War showing Mothra flying back to Infant Island has led to a never-ending debate about whether Mothra lived or died in the film. The Final War's Mothra retained her ability to release toxic scales, which caused Gigan's razor discs to malfunction and boomerang back to the monster's neck, instead of returning to their designated compartments in his chest. Another move that Mothra used against both Gigan and Monster X was the Bomber Lariat, which was knocking down opponents by flying over them at an incredible speed. Other media. After Godzilla Final Wars, Mothra took a break from the big screen for 15 long years before making a full-fledged appearance in 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters. In all those years, the majestic beast appeared in some books and comics and was also referenced in some Godzilla anime. In 2011 comics Godzilla, Gangsters and Goliaths, a detective landed up on Monster Island while investigating a crime syndicate and chanced upon Mothra's twin priestesses, the Elias. He brought them back to Tokyo in the hope that Mothra would follow and destroy the crime syndicate herself. But when the Elias got abducted in Tokyo, it irked the wrath of all the kaiju on Monster Island, including Mothra and Godzilla. In 2012, Mothra briefly featured in a comic issue of Godzilla Legends as an adversary of the aquatic dinosaur kaiju Titanosaurus. The comic book series titled Godzilla Ongoing, or simply Godzilla, published between 2012 and 2013, explained Mothra's backstory as one of the first kaiju who had saved Earth from an extraterrestrial monster menace. On present-day Earth, when the ancient monsters were being captured by the Monster Kill Crew, Mothra sent her Shobijin to speak at the United Nations conference, warning everyone about an impending menace. When four space monsters, Gigan, Space Godzilla, Hedorah, and Monster X, unleashed their fury on the planet, Mothra battled Monster X in Manhattan, making the Monster Kill Crew realize that the ancient kaiju were not the enemies and had appeared to protect the planet. Mothra's next adventure was in an issue of 2012 comic series Godzilla the Half-Century War. Set in Ghana of 1975, the criminal underworld had unleashed a menagerie of monsters in the African country, including Mothra and the anti-monster forces. One for each monster must defeat their respective opponents. Following the continuity of the aforementioned Godzilla ongoing comics, Godzilla Rulers of Earth was published between 2013 and 2015. It became the very first American comic series based on Godzilla to be released in Japan. In the comics, Mothra and Godzilla teamed up to fight Destoroyah, with Mothra's twin larvae shrouding the alien beast in silk. By releasing her toxic scales, Mothra caused Destoroyah to cough up blood. However, Mothra was weakened by Destoroyah's attacks and retreated to Infant Island to rest on a pedestal along with her twin larvae. Mothra's Shobijin explained that thousands of years ago, when Earth's guardian kaiju King Caesar got violent, Mothra saved the people of an ancient civilization and brought them to Infant Island, whose descendants were currently the island's natives. The Shobijin also revealed a deadly prophecy that one day, two beasts would emerge, one to destroy the planet and one to protect. And even if Mothra doesn't recover, the prophecy would still come true, hinting at Godzilla taking the mantle of the protective kaiju. Mothra eventually died battling her dark counterpart Batra in the comics and was survived by her larvae twins. The 2014 comic series Godzilla Cataclysm houses an epic battle between Mothra and Godzilla. 20 years after a monster apocalypse destroyed Earth's ecosystem, humans living in the ruins of Tokyo discover a regenerative portion of the plant kaiju, Biollante, which can return greenery to Earth. But when Godzilla emerges to kill Biollante, Mothra intervenes and gets her wing chopped off by the King of Monsters. However, Mothra returns to aid Godzilla when a bigger threat emerges in the form of Destoroyah. Mothra perishes against the monster's micro-oxygen beam attacks, leaving behind 2 larval offspring. Mothra appeared again in 2016 comics Godzilla Oblivion, in which a scientist opens a portal into an alternate world which is infested with kaiju. When the alternate world monsters escape into the real world, with Mothra and her larval offspring among them, it's up to Godzilla and Mechagodzilla to handle the kaiju menace. Godzilla Oblivion was followed by another comic series that year, Godzilla Rage Across Time. When the protagonists discover the remains of a 14th century knight alongside the body of a Megaguirus, it's theorized that in 1348, Knight Gilda was commissioned by King Edward III to investigate the source of the Black Death Plague, which he believed to be the doing of a kaiju. On his expedition, Gilda was attacked by Megaguirus and unknowingly took shelter in Mothra's cave. Believing Mothra to be dangerous, Gilda's men attacked Mothra, who resisted their advances and later slayed the Megaguirus. While the other explorers left, Gilda, who had already contracted the plague, burned Megaguirus and remained in the cave, only for his remains to be discovered later in 2016. In 2019, Toho created a monster puppet show for kids named Godziban, which focused on the adventures of 3 Godzilla brothers and went on to have 4 seasons between 2019 and 2023. Living on Godzi Island, the Gojira brothers were often assisted by other kaiju, with the Mothra twins among them. The larval twins named Moshu Moshu with 1 U and Moshu Moshu with double U's were distinguishable by their different eye colors. The Mothra twins assisted the Godzilla siblings in defeating King Ghidorah and the genetically engineered Dorak kaiju. Godziban also featured 2 exclusive episodes, one of which was Mothra vs. Bagan. Godzilla Anime Trilogy, 2017 to 2018. Mothra was next extensively referenced in the Godzilla Anime Trilogy, which released between 2017 and 2018. At least 3 of her ancestors featured in this continuity, with 2 of them existing off-screen, and the 3rd one appearing in a vision of the protagonist, Haruo Sakaki. Mothra's heroic tale was explained in the trilogy's prequel novels, 2017's Godzilla Monster Apocalypse and 2018's Godzilla Project Mechagodzilla. This Mothra was shown as a goddess kaiju who coexisted in the Amazon rainforest along with a bunch of natives called Mothra's people. Mothra also had a counterpart, Batra, and together they were said to be a worthy force against Godzilla. However, Batra was forced to emerge earlier than Mothra in order to intercept an earthbound meteor when he was slain by Godzilla, leaving Mothra to oppose the kaiju alone. After Mothra's awakening, she laid 2 eggs, which she enabled the United Earth Defense Troops to successfully transport to what was once Japan, so that when hatched, the Mothra offspring could continue to protect humanity. While this project, called Operation Cradle, was successful, Mothra died defending her eggs from Godzilla, and so did the offspring, who emerged to attack the King of Monsters. One of the carcasses of the Mothra offspring fell through a crater on the Earth's surface, unveiling another egg. Natives who had followed the original Mothra's egg to Japan inherited Mothra's DNA and evolved into a race called the Hutua. They built a village in the crater and constructed a temple around this egg, protecting it from Godzilla for 20,000 years, after humanity was driven away from the planet by the monster. In the second film of the trilogy, City on the Edge of Battle, only the remaining egg was shown, with Mothra's story being narrated by the Shobijin, who were the priestesses Meina and Miana. They could communicate with the egg telepathically, and that's how they figured out that Haruo Sakaki and his troops had returned to Earth 20,000 years later to defeat Godzilla. In the 3rd film of the trilogy, The Planet Eater, Mothra appeared in the vision of Haruo Sakaki, enabling him to free himself of the telepathic influence of Colonel Medphis. The anime trilogy incarnation of Mothra could generate golden scales, which she released from her wings. These scales had healing powers and were powerful enough to reflect Godzilla's atomic breath back at him. As the Hutua people inherited Mothra's genes, they too could release the healing scales from their skin. Mothra's wings could also deflect enemy attacks and distort Godzilla's permeable shield. Mothra was telepathic, an ability which she shared with her people in the Amazon rainforest. 20,000 years later, the Mothra inside the egg retained this ability and communicated with her priestesses psychically. Even from inside her egg, Mothra was able to appear in the vision of others telepathically. Monsterverse, Kong Skull Island, 2017. This brings us to Monsterverse's Mothra, brilliantly designed and strategically explained, enabling her to shine as the Queen of the Monsters in a cinema lore dominated by the King of the Monsters, Godzilla. At the end of 2017's Kong Skull Island, the film's protagonists James Conrad and Mason Weaver, who had just encountered a bunch of dangerous adventures around Kong on Skull Island, were met by Monarch employees to reveal some classified information. What we're about to tell you next requires level 6 authorizations from Monarch. No kidding. This island is just the beginning. There's more out there. This world never belonged to us, it belonged to them. The question is, how long before they take it back? Monarch geologist Houston Brooks told James and Mason. What flashed on the screen in front of them were cave paintings of Godzilla, Ghidorah, Rodan and Mothra, with Mothra being surrounded by her human worshippers, thus setting the premise for the monsters to make an appearance in the next Monsterverse movie, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 2019. In the 2019 film, Mothra was explained to be from a lineage of protective Lepidopteran titans, an ancient guardian kaiju concerned with maintaining nature's balance. Mothra was worshipped as a goddess in the ancient past and features in myths and folklores from around the world. A temple dedicated to Mothra also suggested that she was able to coexist with humans peacefully. Mothra also shared a symbiotic relationship with Godzilla, aiding him in the past during King Ghidorah's emergence. Mothra's relationship with Godzilla was reflected in her Monsterverse design, as the eye-like patterns on the corners of her wings were created to represent Godzilla's eyes. In 2009, Monarch discovered Mothra's giant egg inside the ruins of a long-lost temple located in China's Yunnan rainforest, the Temple of the Moth. Monarch constructed outpost number 61 around it, tending to and studying the mysterious egg. Monarch classified Mothra as Tatanus Mozura, which meant giver of life on a small island in Indonesia, where she was worshipped as a goddess. In 2019, Mothra's egg began pulsating, with radiation levels going through the roof, as it was about to hatch into a gigantic larva. When Monarch attempted to create a barrier around the just-hatched Mothra, it felt threatened and fired streams of silk at the guards. When Monarch scientist Emma Russell attempted to calm her down with the Orca device, she was unable to find the correct sonar frequency. This further enraged the Mothra larva, prompting it to emit an orange and red bioluminescent glow. However, the Orca finally managed to pacify Mothra, who allowed Emma's daughter Madison to reach out to her with a hand. When the eco-terrorist group led by Alan Jonah attacked the Monarch facility, the Mothra larva escaped the temple and cocooned itself behind a nearby waterfall. When Monster Zero, aka King Ghidorah, was unleashed by the Emma Russell and Alan Jonah team up, the alien monster let out an alpha call that awakened dormant kaiju all around the world to do his bidding. Simultaneously, Mothra hatched out of her cocoon in her imago form, covering a length of 245 meters with her glowing blue wings, and flew into the sky, which had been shrouded by Ghidorah's stormy clouds. Mothra was alarmed by Ghidorah's alpha call, but unlike the other monsters, she refused to bend to his will, because she was a guardian kaiju herself, and also because of her allegiance to Godzilla. Mothra flew over to Monarch's Castle Bravo outpost, dispersing the storm clouds on her way, looking for Godzilla. The scientists at the outpost realized that Mothra was trying to communicate Godzilla's location to Monarch. P.S. Godzilla was lying at the bottom of the ocean, gravely injured by the oxygen destroyer that was meant to obliterate Ghidorah. Tracking Mothra, Monarch identified that Godzilla was lying in his underwater lair in the ruins of an ancient city, replenishing himself with radiation. This convinced Dr. Ishiro Serizawa to sacrifice himself and revive Godzilla with a nuke, so that he could return to finish off Ghidorah once and for all. During Godzilla's final showdown with Ghidorah in Boston, Mothra reappeared and charged at the three-headed monster, spitting silk at his three heads. Summoned by Ghidorah, Rodan interfered with Mothra's plans, attacking the Moth Kaiju mid-air and pinning her to a skyscraper. As Rodan attempted to stab Mothra with his beak, Mothra pierced a stinger through Rodan, causing him to crash into the fiery ruins below. Mothra, charred by the lava dripping from Rodan's wings and weakened by the aerial fight, returned to the battle scene to aid Godzilla. Beaten by Ghidorah, the King of Monsters had fallen to the ground when Mothra crawled up on her ancient ally and proceeded to challenge the three-headed monster in an act of sacrifice. In an epic move, Mothra defiantly unfurled her wings at Ghidorah, shielding Godzilla from the space monster's gravity beams and getting incinerated in the process. Mothra's life essence floated into Godzilla, transforming the weakened kaiju into a supercharged, glowing version with menacing orange cracks on his skin. When this burning Godzilla released his atomic breath at Ghidorah, it echoed Mothra's roar and appeared in the silhouette of Mothra, setting Ghidorah's wings on fire. Godzilla's second atomic blast too unleashed in the form of Mothra, causing Ghidorah to melt down, before Godzilla finally stomped on him. As Godzilla reasserted his place as the king of the monsters, the likes of Scylla, Behemoth, Methuselah, Rodan and the Queen Muto bowed down before him. Mothra's symbiotic relationship with Godzilla was beautifully explored in the film. First, she was able to communicate with Godzilla when he was lying at the bottom of the sea. Then, she transferred her life energy into Godzilla to make him powerful enough to destroy Ghidorah. Mothra's sacrifice permanently changed Godzilla, as revealed in the graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, giving him new insights into Earth's ecosystem and enabling him to understand the functioning of the planet better. In addition to Mothra's symbiotic relationship with Godzilla, the Monsterverse incarnation of the benevolent moth kaiju exhibited some impressive abilities. In her larval form, Mothra emitted an orange glow when threatened, emitted red when angered, and glowed blue when pacified, which is a reference to the larvae offspring in Godzilla Tokyo SOS, who changed their eye color when the mother Mothra died. Of all the monsters in the 2019 film, Mothra's bioluminescence was the most extreme. In her larval stage, the Monsterverse Mothra could spit silk, which in her imago form was powerful enough to plaster two of Ghidorah's heads onto a building. Mothra's God Rays, which are bioluminescent streams from her wings, were a game changer in the movie. She was able to dispel Ghidorah's storm clouds over Castle Bravo with the rays, revealing her presence to Monarch. Mothra also fought with her mantis-like clawed forelimbs, striking Rodan with them. Mothra also possessed a secret stinger on her abdomen, which was powerful enough to incapacitate Rodan. Director Michael Dougherty jokingly toyed with the idea that the stinger could double up as an ovipositor, quipping, "So, who knows? Maybe Rodan is now pregnant." Mothra's immortality was reasserted in Monsterverse again, in her ability to asexually lay an egg, a process that would carry on the lineage forever, with each Mothra incarnation inheriting the memories of her ancestors. Now, while you may think that Monsterverse left out one of the most traditional elements of Mothra lore, the Shobijin, they were actually represented by their twin sisters, Dr. Eileen and Dr. Ling, in the 2019 movie. The twin sisters were monarch scientists who studied ancient kaiju-related mythology and believed that myth is our compass to coexist with monsters such as Godzilla and Mothra in present times. Eileen and Ling belonged to the Chen family, which had twin sisters born into each generation of the family. Mothra was believed to have a psychic connection with the Chen family twins since ancient times, as seen by the statue standing by her egg in the Temple of the Moth. It was the Chen sisters who guided Monarch into discovering Mothra's egg in the Temple of the Moth. Godzilla vs. Kong, 2021. In 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong, a cave painting in Kong's temple in Hollow Earth featured depictions of Mothra, Godzilla, Kong, and a giant skullcrawler. The painting appeared to depict an ancient war in which Mothra fought alongside her ally, Godzilla. In Godzilla vs. Kong's prequel graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, Mothra appeared in a vision of Godzilla when he was searching for a new lair, as his former one was destroyed by the nuke in King of the Monsters. As Godzilla arrived on a desolate island with jagged cliffs, his senses were overwhelmed by Earth's atmosphere and ecosystem. He understands the sense of growth and decay, of health and sickness, of clouds pregnant with rain and grass, shriveling in hard soil. Looking up, Godzilla saw a vision of Mothra in the sky, and realized that by giving him her life, Mothra has also given him her mystical powers, enabling him to have new insights into the planet. Chibi Mothra, 2019 to 2021. The cutest incarnation of the moth kaiju appeared in the Chibi Godzilla franchise, created for young children. It features chibi versions of Godzilla and his friends, chibi meaning little in Japanese. Chibi Mothra first appeared in the 2019 children's book Close Friends Chibi Godzilla, and then in the two Chibi series, 2020's I'm Home, Chibi Godzilla, and 2023's Chibi Godzilla Raids Again. In the book version, Chibi Mothra pacifies Chibi Godzilla when he's upset, and is friends with her frequent on-screen opponents Ghidorah, Rodan, Anguirus, and Mechagodzilla. In Chibi Godzilla Raids Again, Mothra has a sparkly wing and leaves a glowing trail when flying. She appears as a shy juvenile kaiju who telepathically communicates with the Shobijin sisters. Chibi Mothra often gets flustered while interacting with her chibi monster friends. When the Shobijin attempt to communicate Mothra's feelings to others, they end up comically translating something else. Godzilla Singular Point, 2021. In the 2021 anime series Godzilla Singular Point, a swarm of Mothras made an appearance in the second last episode of the show. When the protagonist Yun Arikawa and his band of people proceeded to face off against Godzilla in Tokyo, they encountered a strange glowing moth, which briefly sat on the heroic robot Jet Jaguar's hand, before flying away. When Tokyo was covered in the red dust archetype released by Godzilla, a swarm of moths suddenly flew through the sky, as if appearing out of thin air. Goro Otaki, who was accompanying Yun Arikawa, commented that the creatures appeared to be Japanese silk moths. However, they were different in color. The fluttering creatures were never referred to as Mothra in the series, but their identity was confirmed in the official Godzilla Singular Point fan book. They're thought to be a different species of the Japanese silk moth, but it remains unknown whether they emerged from the red dust archetype or not. Goro Otaki also highlights that the appearance of the moths is an omen of an impending war, and quotes from a Japanese historical chronicle that the flight of yellow butterflies is a sign of warfare, thus foreshadowing their ultimate showdown with Godzilla. Other media. In the Godzilla Monsters and Protectors comics, running between 2021 and 2022, Mothra was the goddess kaiju of Infant Island, tended to by tiny telepaths, the Shobijin, who pondered about the thought of Mothra being summoned to save the humans from Godzilla's rage. In this storyline, Godzilla was enraged by the modern civilization's continued efforts to destroy Earth for personal gain and planned to cause a massive explosion, ushering in another ice age. Just as Godzilla prepared to unleash his explosive breath, Mothra arrived at the scene with a bunch of school-going protagonists. When the Shobijin connected the little heroes' minds to Godzilla's, the King of Monsters saw there was still good left in humanity and decided to retreat. In the second season of the comics Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors, All Hail the King, released between 2022 and 2023, Mothra appeared only in a cave painting, while the Shobijin returned to play an important role in the storyline. When the Exilians were haunting Earth's people with nightmares, the Shobijin became aware that Ghidorah was about to be awakened. They telepathically reached out to the little heroes, who had a unique connection to Mothra and Godzilla, allowing them to tour Infant Island remotely. In this storyline, Mothra remained in slumber, regaining her strength, leaving it up to Earth's young heroes to summon Godzilla and other monsters to battle the extraterrestrial foe. The Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors series was wrapped up by the final installment, 2023's Summer Smash, in which Mothra had regained her strength to fight and returned to the battlefield to aid Godzilla and Jet Jaguar against Mecha King Ghidorah. Mothra attacked Ghidorah with her triple laser beams fired from the gems on her forehead, just like Mothra Leo from the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy. With Jet Jaguar flying away with the cyborg monster, Mothra teamed up with Godzilla to destroy the Exilians' base and drive them out from Earth. Mothra featured as Godzilla's adversary in Mary Kenny's Godzilla Rivals vs. Mothra comics in 2021, the first ever Godzilla comics written by a woman. The comics described Mothra as the ancient and beautiful guardian of nature and humanity. The Japan Self-Defense Forces, having witnessed what Godzilla was capable of doing 10 years ago, had chained down Mothra under Lake Ikeda sometime in the past. In present times, suspicious activity from inside the lake prompted a JSDF admiral to order that the lake be bombarded to kill whatever was inside it. The photojournalist protagonist, Mima Kinjo, secretly dove into Lake Ikeda to find Mothra trapped inside and returned another time to release the kaiju. Once freed, Mothra flew away to cocoon herself, while Mima was imprisoned by the JSDF. As Godzilla emerged again and rampaged through Japan, Mima was visited by the Shobojin in her cell, who told her that Mothra must regain strength before she could handle the Godzilla menace. The JSDF, unable to control Godzilla's destructive ventures, decided to take Mima's advice and let Mothra battle the King of Monsters. Mima was released from her cell so that she could track down Mothra and help her to hatch from her cocoon. Mothra arrived to save the day just in time, attacking Godzilla with her antennae beams and slamming him with her abdomen. She tangled Godzilla's foot in silk, causing him to topple and continue to spray silk around both of them. While Godzilla bit off Mothra's wing and fired his atomic breath at her, she finished creating the silken cocoon, trapping both of them inside. The cocoon eventually drowned in water, marking yet another sacrifice by Mothra, who gave her life to save humanity from Godzilla's wrath. However, sometime later, Godzilla emerged from the cocoon for yet another comic book adventure. In 2022, Mothra appears in another installment of the comics called Godzilla Rivals vs. Batra, when the English seaside town of Hackney-on-Sea gets dangerously polluted by sewage and toxic waste. Mothra's dark counterpart Batra awakens from under the surrounding hills to destroy humanity and protect Earth. Godzilla, who's not made landfall in a mysteriously long time, awakens to battle Batra, but appears to require more help. One of the protagonists comes to the realization that Mothra can be summoned by a special song, which is initially believed to be lost, but is surprisingly played by a bot. As Godzilla and Batra clash, Mothra arrives at the scene and communicates through FM that the town of Hackney-on-Sea is not the cause of the pollution, but the victim. Mothra successfully convinces Batra to retreat, telling him that his attacks would only force the humans to create greater horrors. Mothra returns in another Godzilla Rivals comics, 2023's Mothra vs. Titanosaurus. When a Mothra egg floats onto the shores of California, two scientists decide to test their experimental device, which is created to track the magnetic field generated by kaiju to mark their respective territories. The device picks up two sources of these magnetic fields, one emitting from Mothra's egg and the other from the dinosaur kaiju, Titanosaurus. Their overlapping territories have prompted Titanosaurus to move toward the Mothra egg and attack it. When the scientists start transporting the egg on a carrier, it begins to stir, sensing the arrival of Titanosaurus, who strikes the ship but is interrupted by the adult Mothra. Firing her antennae beams, she forces Titanosaurus to retreat and then descends on her egg, which hatches into a lava Mothra. In the Godzilla Rivals vs. Mechagodzilla comics, Mothra simply appears on a monitor screen. In the Godzilla War for Humanity comics, Mothra traverses to Monster Island to draw out Godzilla, when the world is being plagued by the fungus monster Zoospora. Godzilla simply stays put on the island in order to protect his son Manila from the new threat. When Mothra attempts to drag him toward the ocean, Godzilla chars Mothra's wings with his atomic blasts. Mothra also briefly aids the robotic Meguera in defeating the menagerie of monsters which have been infected by the Zoospora and are acting destructive. Mothra also makes a brief appearance in 2023 Godzilla comics Here There Be Dragons. Set in the 1500s, the comics miniseries tracks the adventures of explorer Sir Francis Drake, who encounters several kaiju, including Godzilla and Mothra, during a lost voyage that takes him to Monster Island. As you can tell, Mothra features in a number of publications in 2023, one even being a Valentine's Day edition of a children's book titled Love from Godzilla, which adorably portrays Mothra as one of Godzilla's besties. This year, Mothra also appears in the much-awaited graphic novel collection Legends of the Monsterverse, the Omnibus, which comprises the reprinted versions of Godzilla Awakening, Kingdom Kong, Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, Godzilla Dominion, and Godzilla Aftershock, and also includes an exclusive Godzilla vs. Kong related story titled Godzilla Fight or Flight. That was an attempt at encapsulating Mothra's impressive legacy in a metaphorical cocoon. If you're still with us, you've earned the right to another bit of classified information about Mothra. In King of the Monsters, having identified Godzilla's underwater location around Castle Bravo, guess where Mothra flew off to before she reappeared in Boston again? Mothra went away to lay her egg in her territory, somewhere in the Yunnan rainforest, as was confirmed by director Michael Dougherty in a tweet. Meanwhile, the credits scene of the movie also suggestively paved the way for a Mothra comeback in Monsterverse. A news article revealed that Monica's found a giant egg within Mothra's territory, which is being analysed to identify its origins. Are we rooting for Mothra's return in Monsterverse? Absolutely yes. Do you also think this mystical divine kaiju deserves a new film of her own? Tell us in the comments below. And as the Shobijin said, if the world lives to see another century, please remember what Mothra did for you in the planet you live on. If you liked our video, please give us a shout out and watch this space for more marvelous content.